biblical elucidation. To make something that is hard to understand, clear, or easy to understand, we're talking about biblical things. Those things in the Bible that seem tough. We're going to break it down, show you the real, what's going on with those. Biblical elucidation.
And Cain said unto the Lord, My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. And the Lord said unto him, Therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. Genesis chapter 4, verses 13 through 15. What was the mark God set upon Cain? In order to answer this question, we must not only explore the scriptures, but also the depths of the Hebrew language. The Hebrew word translated mark in Genesis chapter 4, verse 15 is oath, which means a signal, some kind of evidence, mark, sign, or token placed upon Cain by God. In this instance, we need to examine the word oath more in depth. It is important to know that every letter in a Hebrew word comes together to form a picture, and that each letter is also a number. Oath in Hebrew is spelled Aleph, Vav, Tav. Aleph is the first letter and the beginning of the Hebrew Aleph Bet. It is the symbol of an ox, which means strong leader, God the Father. Vav is the symbol of a nail, meaning to bind together. It connects two things that are separate to make them secure. Tav is the 22nd letter of the Hebrew Aleph Bet. It is also the last letter ending the Hebrew Aleph Bet. It is the symbol of a cross, meaning to seal, a covenant, a sign. These three Hebrew characters include the first and last letters of the Hebrew Aleph Bet, bound together by the Vav, forming a picture of God the Father binding with a seal, or simply put, God's seal. Don't forget, the Hebrew letters are also numbers. Aleph is the number 1, meaning God the Father. Vav is the number of man, 6, which can mean preservation. And lastly, Tav is the number 400, which is a probationary period of testing in order to accomplish a divine purpose. With the understanding of the numerical values of the Hebrew letters, we come to see that God has preserved Cain for a probationary period in order to accomplish a divine purpose. Contrary to popular belief, the mark placed upon Cain by God was not intended to be a negative stigma. Rather, God bestowed this permanent emblem upon Cain as a sign of his protection, a sign that would allow all whom would see Cain to know that he was not to be killed. The question we should ask ourselves here is, can we find this exact language and idea of God's mark of protection anywhere else in the Bible? The answer is yes. Nevertheless, the foundation of God standeth sure. Having this seal, the Lord knoweth them that are his, and let everyone that nameth the name of Christ depart from iniquity. 2 Timothy 2:19. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. Revelation 7, verses 2 and 3. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. Revelation 9:4. The Greek word translated seal is saphlagis, meaning a signet, to fence in or to protect from misappropriation. The exactness of the Greek language allows us to hone in, giving further clarity of the use of God's mark or seal. In the same likeness that God marked Cain, Revelation reveals certain groups of believers that God will also mark to protect from hurt or death. We must learn to allow the Bible to shape our views and beliefs instead of traditional thought and denominational thinking or even non-exegetical preaching. Yes, Cain killing his brother Abel was awful, but although God could have rightfully killed Cain for killing Abel, God did not. Instead, Moses reveals to us that God protected Cain by marking him with a seal of protection against all who might want to avenge Abel by killing Cain. The Bible doesn't stop there. It continues by giving us further clues into Cain's relationship with God after he killed his own brother Abel, and after being punished for this iniquity. We find this hidden in the names of Cain's descendants. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. And he builded a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. And unto Enoch was born Arad, and Arad begot Mehujael, and Mehujael begot Methusael, and Methusael begot Lamech. Genesis 4:17 and 18. Did you notice that Cain's descendants are named some of the very same names as the righteous line of Seth? Did you also notice the two names that ended with the name El, which happens to be the name used to identify God's might, power, and strength, distinguishing God as Almighty? If we look just a little bit closer, the meanings of Cain's descendants' names give a greater revelation to be discovered. His descendants' names again are Enoch, which means to initiate or to discipline; Irad, which means fugitive; Mehujael, which means smitten of God; Methusael, which means man who is of God; and Lamech, which means to be low. Together, these names form a cryptic yet insightful message concerning Cain, who was disciplined by becoming a fugitive, smitten by God. He was a man of God that had to be brought low. Wow. Look how easily we forgot that the scriptures introduced Cain as a man in right relationship with God, presenting an offering to God as his Lord, whom God had a personal relationship with, and even pre-warned about the sin that was looking to rule over Cain. Look how easily we have written off Cain and damned Cain because he failed by murdering his brother in cold blood and then lying to God instead of being honest and forthcoming. But look how God spared Cain in spite of, just like he has shown us mercy and spared sinners like you and I. Some of you might be thinking, but Cain was banished to Nod. I cannot stress enough the importance of attention to detail. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. Genesis chapter 4, verse 16. This is the same place his parents, Adam and Eve, were expelled to. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword which turned in every way to keep the way of the tree of life. Genesis chapter 3, verse 24. The difference in Cain's punishment is that he is now a fugitive and a vagabond. Cain is being made to escape, disappear, and wander from place to place east of Eden. Cain must flee, vacate the area. Adam and Eve were expelled to the east of the Garden of Eden, which gives us the subtle hint that Adam and Eve never really left the Garden of Eden. Because they could no longer be in the garden, they lived right outside of the garden's boundaries. Adam and Eve were not fugitives and vagabonds. Cain was now a fugitive and a vagabond, marked by God with the same letters that our Lord identified himself with when Jesus revealed himself to John in his letter Revelation, saying, I am the Alpha and Omega. In the Hebrew, the Aleph and Tav, the beginning and the ending, saith the Lord, which is and which was and which is to come, the Almighty. Revelation 1, verse 8. Cain was marked with the letters Aleph, Vav, Tav, for all to see and know that he belonged to and was protected by God. We must come to realize that although this story seems to be, and by tradition has been taught to be about Cain, that it really was never about him at all. It's a story about the graciousness and mercy of our God.
Thank you for listening. Did you know that you can automatically receive biblical elucidation directly on your device weekly by subscribing on iTunes, Google Play Music, or iHeartRadio? We would love to hear your feedback, comments, and questions on our Facebook page at Biblical Elucidation. Please leave us a review on iTunes. This really helps other believers like you find this podcast.